Have you ever stumbled upon a moment that changed everything? A chance encounter that rewrote the script of your life? This is the story of Daniel Hayes, a man who thought he was searching for old fencing, but instead found a miracle in chains. The early spring morning in the Colorado highlands was quiet, broken only by the whisper of wind threading through pines and the distant rush of a river swollen with snowmelt. Daniel Hayes had not planned on leaving his cabin that day, but fate often wrote its own script. He had driven his battered pickup into the forest outskirts, searching for old fencing material a neighbor claimed had been abandoned decades ago. What he found instead would change his life and the life of a broken creature forever. As Daniel stepped from the truck, his boots crunching over damp earth, he heard a sound that didn't belong. A low, trembling whinny, thin as thread, carried through the trees. Horses were not uncommon in Colorado, but this sound was different, strained, desperate, almost like a cry. Something inside Daniel stirred, the instinct that had carried him through hard ranching years and lonely nights after his wife's passing. He followed the sound deeper into the brush, pushing past junipers and tangled branches until the clearing opened before him. And there he froze. A full small ribs protruding like a xylophone, legs shaking under its own weight, stood chained to a crooked pine. The metal collar bit cruelly into its neck, the chain rusted and wrapped twice around the trunk. Its eyes, wide pools of fear, locked on Daniel's. They were not the wild eyes of a Mustang, untouched by humans, but eyes pleading, almost human in their silent cry. "Help me." Daniel's heart clenched. "Good Lord," he whispered, stepping closer. The foal staggered back, tugging against the chain until the skin around its neck reddened. "Easy, boy, easy," Daniel murmured. "I'm not here to hurt you." The foal's trembling worsened, but it did not lunge or kick. Instead, it collapsed to its knees, as if surrendering to exhaustion. Daniel knelt beside it, fighting back a tide of anger. Who would do this? Who could abandon a creature so young, so vulnerable, to die in silence? "I'll get you out," Daniel promised. He hurried back to his truck and retrieved a crowbar and wire cutters. The chain was old but stubborn, rust eating at its links, yet still strong. Daniel worked with shaking hands, each clang of metal echoing through the woods. The foal flinched at every sound, but it no longer fought him. It seemed to sense this man was different. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the final link snapped free. The collar fell away, leaving a raw mark across the foal's neck. The little horse staggered, nearly collapsing, but Daniel caught its weight against his chest. "Steady now, you're free." It was then Daniel noticed the foal's hooves, cracked and caked with mud, and a wound along its flankhold, infected and untreated. Survival here, alone, would have been impossible. Daniel couldn't leave him. He fetched a blanket from his truck, gently draping it over the foal's thin back, and coaxed him toward the vehicle. Step by shaky step, the foal followed, as though some invisible bond had already been forged. "Phoenix," Daniel said suddenly, the name springing to life in his mind. "That's what you are. Rising out of fire, born again." Back at his cabin, Daniel knew he needed help. Called Miguel Alvarez, his closest friend and fellow rancher. Within an hour, Miguel's old Ford rumbled into the driveway. Dios. Miguel breathed when he saw Phoenix, curled in Daniel's barn on a bed of straw. "He's just a baby." "Someone left him to die," Daniel said, his voice rough. "We can't let that happen." Miguel nodded, determination hardening his features. "Then we won't." Together they called Sarah Collins, a retired horse trainer known for her gentle hand. She arrived with supplies, ointments, fresh hay, clean water, and gasped when she laid eyes on Phoenix. "Poor soul," she murmured, stroking his muzzle. "You know, he's got a fight ahead of him, but with care. Maybe." Sarah's eyes flicked to Daniel, lingering. She saw the way Phoenix leaned toward him as though the foal had already chosen his guardian. The days that followed were grueling. Phoenix refused food at first, too weak to chew, but Daniel stayed by his side, coaxing him with soft words. At night, when nightmares made the foal thrash, Daniel whispered until he calmed. Slowly, Phoenix learned to trust. Dr. Emily Carter, the town's veterinarian, arrived after Miguel insisted on professional help. She examined the foal with practiced hands, frowning at the infected wound and malnutrition. "It's a miracle he's alive," she said. "But if we clean the wound, keep him fed, and watch for fever, He has a chance. Daniel nodded firmly. Then we'll give him that chance. Over weeks, Phoenix transformed. His coat, once dull and patchy, began to shine. His legs steadied, carrying him around the corral with hesitant steps that grew stronger each day. The scar around his neck remained, but it became less a mark of pain and more a badge of survival. Sarah taught Daniel how to brush Phoenix's mane, how to approach without startling him, how to reward trust with patience. Miguel reinforced the fences and built a small shelter. It was a community effort, but Phoenix always turned to Daniel, first his anchor, his chosen human. Yet shadows of the past lingered. Sheriff Mark Reynolds visited after hearing whispers of abandoned livestock. He listened carefully as Daniel recounted the rescue. Leaving an animal chained like that is cruelty, plain and simple, the sheriff said grimly. I'll see if we can track down who's responsible. Though no culprit was ever found, the search ignited local outrage. Neighbors rallied, bringing hay bales, grain, and even children's drawings of Phoenix taped to Daniel's barn door. Phoenix had become a symbol of resilience, proof that kindness could heal even the deepest wounds. Months passed, and the foal no one thought would survive grew into a striking young horse. His muscles filled out, his coat gleamed, and his spirit blossomed. Where once he cowered, now he trotted proudly, mane flying like a banner. Daniel often stood by the fence, awe filling his chest. Look at you, Phoenix, he whispered. From chains to freedom. Sarah watched too, her eyes soft. He's not just surviving, Daniel. He's thriving because of you. Daniel shook his head. Because of all of us. I just found him. Deep down, he knew the truth. Phoenix had found him just as much. The first time Phoenix galloped across the open pasture, Daniel felt something inside himself heal too. Years of loneliness, of quiet nights haunted by loss, seemed to lift with every powerful stride of the horse, who had once lain dying in chains. Anna Walker, a local schoolteacher, brought her students to see Phoenix one sunny afternoon. The children gasped and clapped as Phoenix nuzzled their hands, patient and gentle. See, Anna told them, even the most broken can become strong again if given love. Tears stung Daniel's eyes as he listened. Phoenix was no longer just his horse. He was a story, a lesson, a living miracle. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the Colorado hills, Daniel leaned against the fence, watching Phoenix graze. The foal who had once been chained and starved now stood tall, a survivor who bore his scars with quiet dignity. Miguel joined him, arms folded. You saved him, hermano. Daniel smiled faintly. No, we saved each other. And in that moment, Daniel realized Phoenix's name had been destiny. Out of fire and pain, out of abandonment and cruelty, had risen not just a horse but a bond unbreakable, a promise between man and animal that neither would ever be alone again. Phoenix, the foal who defied chains, had become the very embodiment of hope.